the applicant or their representative like to come forward this time and make a presentation with regard to their application for the business. And if you would please state your name and address for the purpose.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Mike Tebberling. I'm with ABN Engineers. My address is 828th Street. Earlier this year, we were asked by Weld34 LLC to assist them in their rezone of their 137 acres. From an engineering perspective, the county's rezone process considers the impact of potential land use to suitable soils, water and sanitary sewer, and access. At this stage in the development of the property, when the specific nature of the land use is unknown, these issues can only be addressed at the conceptual level. Once the property is zoned and the user is identified, the design approval process through Weld County will address site layout, water service, wastewater discharge and treatment, access, traffic generation, drainage, stormwater management, perimeter treatment and landscaping, site lighting, and impacts to adjacent properties. At this point, the major issue is access. The purpose of US Highway 34, which is classified as a 4-lane divided expressway with limited access, is to move goods and services and people within the region. It's also advantageous when this major traffic corridor is connected to an interstate highway. An interstate highway is the highest type of arterial roadway, and in this case is close to the subject property. Adjacent to the site, Weld County 13 is designated by the county to be a future arterial roadway with the potential to be the extension of Colorado Boulevard from the south. As everyone knows, this area of the county is becoming urbanized and has been considered in various municipal planning horizons in recent years. The towns of Johnstown and Windsor, along with the city of Greeley, have thoughts on how the land adjacent to US Highway 34 should be developed. The city of Greeley did a study several years ago on how the Highway 34 corridor could develop from 59th Avenue to the Weld County line. In that study, it was assumed that the first 1/4 to 1/2 mile on either side of the highway would develop into a primary employment business development corridor. The land uses in this area would include research and development, warehouse and wholesale goods, as well as manufacturing. Beyond the primary corridor, the next 1/2 to 1 mile outside the primary corridor would become the secondary corridor for a mix of residential with supporting neighborhood commercial. This property is ideally suited to industrial use opportunities because of its access to rail. Having connectivity to Class 1 railroads is a unique benefit, one which will be discussed later in this presentation. The Weld County Planning and Public Works staff did a very thorough review of this rezone proposal, and we concur with their recommendation to the Planning Commission for approval. With that brief introduction, I would like to introduce the owner's representative, Mr. Tim Pike, to give further insight.
Good morning. My name is Tim Pike, 7526 West 19th Street in Greeley. I'd like to talk a few things about our project. Some of the agenda items will be why we think rail is needed, why we think it'll stay that way, the importance of rail, some various Weld County policies supporting that as well, and some other items of interest, specifically Greeley Windsor intergovernmental agreement that has been brought up a couple times. One more, please. Okay, what I have here is an estimate of population growth from 2014 through 2040. In 2025, it's projected, this is a linear graph straight growth rate. Obviously, it's not going to be as straight as it is, but if you take the grand total from where it is now, that's where this comes from. So in 2025, it's projected to have 400,000, which is an increase of 111,000 people within Weld County alone. This was brought up, or shown through an article in the Fort Collins, Colorado, one where they expect to be grown out in full at that time. And a lot of it will be moved over into Weld County, obviously simultaneously as well. But that growth represents 39% year-over-year overall, year-over-year growth by that time. So in 10 years, we'll grow another 39%. We selected this property primarily for the access to Highway 34, I-25, and specifically because of the rail. Rail is a vital economic driver, not just in terms of getting goods and services to here, but also alleviating traffic from the highways. For example, when people think of the rail, it was brought up in the planning commission. You know, one car equals roughly 4 truckloads. Well, they're saying that the rail comes in, so those 4 truckloads still need to be on the road, which is true. But they're forgetting the original part, the origin of materials. As an example, take the Walmart distribution center, which is right up the road from this site. They do not have access to rail there, but their warehouse is full, their distribution center is full. How did that stuff get there? It was trucked in. So you have those 4 trucks coming in, offloading into the distribution center, and then from there, they go on to their ultimate destination via truck. So then again, another 4 trucks. That's the equivalent of 8 trucks. Assume the double counting is thrown out. So assume you only have those 4 trucks. Because you have rail access so close to the growth area, population growth area, you're able to reduce the number of trucks needed to deliver the same amount of quantity. By proximity to the market, you can have 1 truck do 2 loads, for example, versus 4 trucks having to do one load each. So again, that reduces the number of trucks on the highways, the total number of miles traveled over the roads. And it's all based on proximity and access to rail. So we think there's a great need for it with this growth rate we're seeing and projected to come soon. We also just anecdotally, we have another site within Weld County that receives our materials via rail. We have had numerous people come to us asking if we have excess capacity on our rail site. We do not. We've built it out pretty much to the max capacity it is. We've leased it out to a frac sand transloading company that is taking up all the space. Yet we still have people coming to us looking for opportunities to transload pipe or just various different materials. We are currently transloading on our tracks that we use for ourselves, telephone poles that come in, combined with all our activity for pull-up. So we're convinced that there's a market out there based on the number of people that have come to us looking for excess capacity, combined with the proximity to this, to the growing area that this property has, and especially the accessibility to rail. Mr. Conway, I'm going to quote you, or pull a quote that you had in the Greeley Tribune that speaks to that. You can read it, but it basically it summarizes what I've just said as far as the need for it to keep the industrial engine running and to alleviate traffic and quality of life. Enhance quality of life, I guess I should say. This next one is one that also reflects the county's willingness and knowledge of the importance of rail. Section 22.6 of the Economic Development Goals and Policies within the Weld County Code recognizes and promotes specific places and resources in the county that can uniquely support economic development. I think this property will be demonstrated that it meets that criteria. This is one of the fastest growing areas not only in the county, not only in the region, but in the country as well. And infrastructural like this is definitely going to be needed, and it's ideally suited for it. The county should encourage an adequate supply of both services and land suitable for industrial development and redevelopment. One of the strategies is to develop a program to create shovel-ready industrial sites throughout the county where primary job providers will be able to develop or redevelop. Zoning infrastructure and services would ideally be immediately available for use in such areas. So you've heard the term shovel-ready, and you'll hear it repeated throughout this presentation. There has been, through various economic development boards, that express desire for shovel-ready sites for people to relocate, not just on rail, but industrial and commercial as well. There's been several instances of companies looking to relocate their companies or manufacturing sites to our county, but have not been able to do so, either in time necessary to get the required permits or the uncertainty of being able to receive those permits. So with this, if we're setting up this site that is uniquely suited for this kind of business, if we have it, we can put the "You're open for business" sign out there, be able to move people quickly into it and have a competitive advantage over other entities. And finally, economic policy 5.3, recognize and support existing railroad infrastructure. And this I'll go and demonstrate on the next slide on how this can work. So what makes this property special is if you click once more, or twice more, this line here is the Great Western line that receives service for the Burlington, or from the Burlington Northern. Let me back up a little bit. The line that goes through our property in that northwest corner is the Great Western Railroad. They are considered a short line railroad, which is unique and advantageous because they receive and are able to receive shipments on rail from two Class 1s, specifically in this area. We have two Class 1s, Burlington Northern and Union Pacific Railroad. The relevancy of receiving, being able to receive product from two Class 1s is typically when manufacturers or suppliers set up their location, they set it up on the railroad at their raw material origin or their finished goods destination. When you have, when you transfer between, say, the Union Pacific and the Burlington Northern, they're going to hit you with a fee for using their railroad. That can be quite expensive on the finished goods or the raw materials, which ends up in the finished goods. It can cost up to $3,000 per car just to switch it onto their track, which would be $30 a ton, which gets quite significant in the competitive market. Great Western, being a short line, has access to both Class 1s, so this gives flexibility for both shippers and receivers on this property. So the one on the south there, where it says up now, is the inbound outbound of the Burlington Northern. And if you click twice again, that line there is the inbound outbound from the Union Pacific. It's important and is a key aspect of this property and its uniqueness to it is you see both of them around the south side of Highway 34. All service will come in from the south, enter the property, and leave from the south to get out. So there's no anticipated crossings of rail coming on our property that the property will drive. It's a very handy ability to get both Class 1s in there, and with rail movement to be able to come in from both options, it really opens the door to many, many people that would be interested in having that flexibility. Click one more. I think we'll click it again. This is National Oil Well Marco. I highlight this, and it was actually apropos that Diana's presentation, when she showed the different angles of the property, that you could see that in the background if you look for it, if you knew it was there. This is roughly equidistance from our property. Our property is roughly 2,400 feet. That warehouse from our property, west forward line, is about 2,400 feet. This warehouse also was in the planning commission hearings, as well as the neighborhood meetings we had, brought up as this is a warehouse, didn't know it was, you know, in operation. It's built in a way that the noise, the sound, the movement, etc., is contained within it, and this was an example of what is a good operation. This is, in effect, essentially what we're looking to do here as well on our property. There's many options, but the distribution and manufacturing is high on our list. Okay. The next one is to give, this next example is to give how different tracks could be laid out on the property, different methodologies, train rooms within it. So if you hit the first one, this is for attempt at using PowerPoint to demonstrate schematics. But this is essentially what a loop track would be. It would come in from the Great Western Line and circle around the property. Typically, unit train business isn't an item in, but there are very few spots that can accept a full unit train. Unit train is typically 100 cars or more on one train. They come in with the power attached, with the engines attached. Whichever rail line would leave their power on, whether Burlington, Northern, Union Pacific, they would leave the power on the cars, move the cars over some unloading facility if it was dry, or a manifold if it was liquids, and they would have 24 hours to either load it or unload it, and then they would pull out. It's not a lot of companies can move that kind of volumes that quickly or have the need to, but it is one option that makes this property unique because of its size and its access. It allows for the necessary radiuses to be built, and it's one other thing that could be offered to this region. Click twice more. And this is an example of the ladder track building. So what I'm trying to represent here is a system known as a ladder track system, where you have individual spurs on the property that multi-companies could use. For example, if you look at any of those lines that end, the company could use that as their own individual private track to access rail for their business. There's commonality, or what I would consider a common road or common line that would service these individuals, so they typically stay free of cars in order to avoid backup of cars. So individual companies would have their individual lines and have access to the rail and a distribution system. Okay. The next couple slides I'd like to go over, or this next slide I'd like to go over some meetings I've had with the neighborhood group, known as Weld34. You know, I reached out to individuals, specifically the individual neighborhood group, but they referred me to the regional group, the CLR34. So all my discussions were with them, via them, through them. I met with them twice. First group probably had 20 people. I'd say the second group had that, if not a little bit more. The first group I had was on June, or first meeting I had with them was on June 16th, about 2 hours. They were gracious enough to invite me to their home. John invited me into his house, where I met him for the first time. Can't say it went really well. It was a little confrontational, I would say. But you know, it's understandable. Their biggest concerns are they were unsure what we had to do. You know, we consistently said throughout this process that we don't have end users in mind. We have talked to a few people since this process has started, but they're hesitant to commit because of the uncertainties. But they were not convinced that we didn't have an end use in mind. So that was a little confrontational. They also suggested a transition between industrial and residentials be provided. They thought commercial was one idea with the bank. One idea was a brewery, or a microbrewery kind of deal, which was intriguing to me, but it's probably not the best suit for this property. They also suggested that we provide a 1,000-foot setback on our property from their property, which essentially we cut our property in half. Honestly, it's not a practical thing, especially with the development of rail. And then my second meeting was on October 8th, again, 2 hours in duration. Dave invited me into his house, so I appreciate that. The second one was much more cordial. Honestly, I thought there was some good discussion. You know, there wasn't a lot of specifics I could give because of the lack of final tenant there. I did go over what I showed you earlier on the bail limits, the reports of 2 Class 1s and why it's unique. What has happened at the time we ran for continuance. We did have discussions with the company that will be presented in general terms coming up during our presentation. Preferred mitigation options, if everybody wanted some, not everybody agreed on what they would be. Some concerns were building height because the impact they have on broadband access coming from the north and the west. But you know, overall, you know, it was a cordial meeting, a friendly meeting. I didn't give them everything we wanted, so that I know there's frustration on their end. But so, again, we don't know what we were going to build out there, so we can't really get into specifics. Okay. One of, if not the biggest reason that we had a 4-4 tie, the other 4 planning commission members did not vote in favor of this was compatibility. You'll hear compatibility obviously throughout this whole day. I'd like to point out that we do feel it's compatible. Obviously, we wouldn't be trying this if we didn't think so. This is a map we put together that actually imitates or mimics what the county's put together. You can see in the blue the existing industrial, our properties outlined in yellow. The red is the existing commercial zoning. The hash marks are the USRs you have before you coming up, including the proposed fly ash transloader facility, which was approved by the Planning Commission 2 weeks ago, I think. The proposed Gerard facility when they moved from the partner area property. You have the proposed crematorium that's coming up as well. And then again, you have the industrial that is Johnstown, that the warehouse I showed you previously is. You have Pelham, which has the waste not recycling, and the various truck docks there, and power equipment stores there that you can see on the highway as well. So this is intended to give the perspective of how we are located, how we're situated within the growth corridor. Now, you'll see the blue north of 34, which is the town of Windsor property or within their growth boundaries. This is referred to, the city of Greeley and town of Windsor wrote a referral letter saying it's not compatible. They don't see it as compatible. Now they did, if you read further down, they said there's things that we done to make it compatible. So what I did is I went through their actual resolution, if you go to that, for their, what they call the Greeley-Windsor Employment Center corridor. It's very small to read, so I don't need to read it, but it's a point of fact in this case of their exhibit C. But if you go to the next slide and then hit one more, allowed land uses, the circle there says they allow light industrial and select medium industrial. I2 is medium industrial, which is exactly what we're going for today. If you go up and more, it says the following land uses are considered principal uses for this corridor, subject to the zoning district standards and review process in the governing jurisdiction, which of course is Polk County. You can see the various uses that I've found in there that we have been talking about all along. There's assembly, there's fabrication, manufacturing, and warehousing. I did notice that in there we could do a sports arena, which I don't know, with the luck of teams we've had recently, that's going to be a big one, but that'd be intriguing. But I would think that would actually add a lot more traffic and congestion to the area than is desired. But I point this out not only because the city of Greeley and the town of Windsor brought this up as reasons to deny or concern, I guess is a better way to put it. But our neighbors to the east actually had used this, as rationale as not that this is not the right spot. Why can't you do what Greeley Windsor wants to do? Didn't you see look out far enough when you bought the property that said that they had plans for this property? Besides the fact that they don't own the property, this I think actually goes hand in hand with what our ultimate desires for this property are. Some of the mitigation concerns, or some of the concerns obviously the neighborhood is always going to be noise limits. Here is from the Weld County Code what industrial construction or construction activities are. So we're allowed 80 dBAs or decibels during the daytime, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., and 75 from 9 to 7 a.m. Obviously, noise is a concern. I would point out, though, that there are existing uses there that could drive the noise above what an industrial site could do. And I guess the next slide is it gives an example of this. If you click, go ahead and just click. If you look here, you got these cars and trucks. I point this out because their northern border is bordered by Highway 34. Obviously, the passenger cars falls within the industrial limits, but then you start getting into the medium trucks and heavy trucks, and those are way above the industrial noise limits. There's been suggestion that we meet residential limits at their property line. I submit to you that they don't have that. It doesn't exist as it is now because the highway is so close. On the northern end, it's roughly 70 foot, and that's just a right of way that borders their property to the northernmost house that borders our property on the east. It's roughly 700 feet. So the noise that's already being generated out there will exceed any industrial noise that we would be allowed to have. And if there was a dispute, or if they said, okay, we have to be residential neighborhood noise there, I would question the ability to pull out the existing noise that already exceeds that, both from the highway and other developments around us. So with that, if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. Troy McWhinney is going to follow me on continuing the presentation.
All right, we only, at this time, we'll only be asking if there's any clarifying questions. Do we need anything clarified at this point?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Troy McWhinney. Address is 4054 County Road 20E, Loveland. I did not present at the planning commission meeting. I listened to Weld34 presented and the neighborhood present, and I found that the neighborhood really made the presentation on the worst case that could happen out there, and I wanted to spend a little time and just show you some of the examples in northern Colorado. So the first slide. These are examples of the Great Western Rail Line through other parts of northern Colorado and how far the setback is from residential homes. This one here is in Windsor, near Windsor Lake, and it's 39 feet. And you also see south of the track there is existing industrial. Next slide, please. This is one in Fort Collins, 52 feet from a person's home to the Great Western Rail Line. This is in Johnstown. This home actually sold recently for $425,000, and it's 55 feet from the Great Western Rail Line. This is one in Loveland. It's 70 feet from the Great Western Rail Line. This is another one in Windsor, 50 feet. This is one in Water Valley. This home sold for $1.2 million in 2013, and it's 69 feet from the Great Western Rail Line. I wanted to use this as an example. The neighborhood message, I think, at planning commission is their right will be destroyed if they have rail next to their house. And I wanted to just to show you examples of other homes in northern Colorado that have the Great Western Rail Line next to them. Next slide. It's important to understand, I believe Ms. Honest will agree that Weld County does not regulate railroad setbacks for residential. Is that correct? Okay. And what we are proposing is a 150-foot setback from any rail to the residential homes. This is something new that we've added since our planning commission meeting. So the next slide here is the county does not regulate the railroad setback. We are willing to self-impose a 150-foot setback. We would also propose a 100-foot no-build, and this is a landscape buffer. There would be no storage, no material storage. Weld County, if the county code said that if we were to build a fence on our property line with the homes next to us, we could start storing equipment and materials on the other side of that fence. We're willing to self-impose a 100-foot setback of landscape, native grasses and trees, so that the neighbors will know that right behind their fence will not be materials and equipment, etc. We're also willing to impose a 150-foot setback for any building structure from the neighbor's property line from any United States. Weld County Code requires a minimum of 10-foot setback for any buildings on a residential property line. And so our proposal is 1,500 times greater than the Weld County Code. Next slide. As Mr. Pikes mentioned, we don't have specific users in mind. What we've talked about is ideas of how a property could be laid out. So, next slide. This is an example of bringing in an access road here, and doing a cul-de-sac, and being able to subdivide the property into 5 or 6 larger users. It's important to understand why we want the rail come this way versus this way. If it came this way, the train would have to come off of 34, cross 34, and have our switch here and come this way. One of the most important things when we first started this was to minimize any train traffic on Highway 34, and that's why we want our switch to be coming this way. So the switch would be here, and not have to cross Highway 34 with the train. Also, next slide, please. This is another example. If we were to have one larger user, ideally the county road and the utilities are over here. We're going to focus as much of our main building as we can over here on the county road. It doesn't make sense for us to install extensive infrastructure 2,400 feet all the way over here. So these are just examples that we see how the property could lay out. Here's the third one. This would be a unit train. What's important on this one is the greater the setback we have here, the less commercial land we have over here. If we were to move this rail 500 feet this way, it would push this rail 500 feet as well, and we would lose a lot of our valuable commercial land along County Road 13. This is just a cross section showing you how wide the property is. It's 2,100 feet, 2,400 feet, and how a home will look crossing the property. This is an example of where we would propose a 100-foot buffer, which is not required by county code. We would go ahead and have a 150-foot setback to the tracks, which is again not required by county code. And then the third one would be no building within 150 feet, which is 1,500 times greater than the county code. Might be it. Next slide. Oh, we are in discussion with one prospect. We've recently made the introduction to Rich Warner at Upstate. We've been having discussions with them for the past 12 months. Fortune 100 company, over $50 billion in annual sales, over 20,000 employees worldwide. They are in the agricultural industry, not the energy industry. There was a lot of rumors that we were exclusively working on energy-related companies. The keywords from their website are cotton, corn, sunflower seeds, wheat, rice, barley, liquid feed, and they have expressed the desire in 3 to 20 acres. Waiting to hear the status of our approval, and they've informed us that this site would really work anywhere in this region. They've also been exploring Colorado, Wyoming, or Nebraska. And I will close on the importance of a shovel-ready site. If you were employed by this firm, and your boss said, go find me a new location in this region, Most people will not go take recommend a site that is not shovel ready. They do not want to spend 6 or 9 months and then come before a board and say, maybe the board votes no. That one individual would probably lose their job if they recommended a site that got turned down. More and more, they're looking for sites that are permit ready, certainty of execution, what we hear all the time. And that is our goal here, is to have sites permit ready. We can sit down with them and county staff and say, you're approved, we're ready to go, now let's work on buffering and screening and stuff like that. But the fact that they know they won't get turned down after 6 or 9 months is extremely important for them. If they were to get turned down, they have to go out and find a new site, which takes a couple months, go through that period again, which takes another 6 or 9 months. So just wanted to make sure you understand how important it is for shovel-ready sites and certainty of execution. Be happy to answer any clarifying questions if you have any.
Okay, does anyone need any clarification on anything? Yes, Commissioner.
Mr. McWhinney, can you just clarify one more time, the two different, excuse me, the two scenarios, the two different type of rails, loops in there?
Sure.
Just one more time again?
Let's back up to some slides, and you can say which one. This one.
The buffer, just again, if you.
Okay, so the next slide forward.
For each one of those rails.
Next slide. So what we are proposing is a self-imposed restriction that no development, no storage, no material within 100 feet of the property line. It would be planted with native grasses, trees, etc. From there, we would have 50 feet that we could offload the train if we needed to on this side, but there would be no structures, no buildings. Then the closest any rail line could be to their property line would be 150 feet. Again, I showed many examples in northern Colorado where rail lines are 40, 50, 60, 70 feet from residential homes. We would self-impose the 150-foot setback. Did that answer your question?
Any other clarification needed? Yes, Commissioner. Oh, you.
So, to the north of this site is an area called Great Western Industrial Park, which is translated slowly. How does this site, it's literally, its growth line is probably less than 10 miles. Yeah. How is this site unique in comparison to that? What are the unique characteristics to this? Because initially we just did a tour out of Great Western. There's plenty of available space for these and business opportunities there. I'm trying to understand, I understand the process of having shovel ready, I understand all of those arguments, but how does this site in particular be different to what is available just to the north?
Sure. For one, competition. Businesses always like competition. When that developer knows he's the only game in town, he may not be as competitive as he should be or needs to be. Some of the users we've talked to want competition. They want to be able to go to us and that other developer. It's a great site there. It is kind of in downtown Windsor, if you will. I think this being out on Highway 34 and I-25, users have talked to me and I've said, I think you want the closest site to the state and the federal transportation system possible. And I believe this is one of the closest sites in Weld County to the state and federal transportation system. You have Highway 34 on your north, you have I-25 not too far to your west. Obviously, as this area grows over the next 10, 20 years, I believe more rail will be needed. And that other site is a great site. They have a lot of land left. They've got a lot of business the last 10 to 15 years. And we would like to be able to compete with them.
Thank you. Is there a clarifying question?
I actually, it's probably not a clarifying question, but I want to refer back to this slide when I ask it. So it's probably a little more detailed than a clarifying question.
Okay, so after the public hearing.
So just keep that slide.
All right,
Thank you.